Before Hollywood knew her name, she was just another college student with big dreams. But when those dreams were shattered, Jane Hamilton made a choice that would shock an entire industry. She became Veronica Hart, and what happened next would change the golden age of adult cinema forever. This is her untold story, and I guarantee you've never heard it like this before. Welcome to Universal Desires, where we uncover the forgotten legends of film history that Hollywood refuses to acknowledge. I'm diving deep into stories that mainstream media won't touch, bringing you the real, unfiltered truth about the icons who shaped an era. If you're fascinated by the hidden chapters of cinema history, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Because what I'm about to reveal about Veronica Hart will completely change the golden age of film. Let's get into it. It's 1979, and Jane Esther Hamilton is standing at a crossroads. She's 23 years old, graduated with a degree in psychology and theater, and she's done everything right. She studied hard, honed her craft, and dreamed of seeing her name in lights on Broadway or in Hollywood. But here's the brutal reality that nobody talks about. Thousands of talented young women just like her were chasing the same dream, and Hollywood had no interest in giving her a chance. Audition after audition, rejection after rejection, the bills were piling up, and Jane was running out of options. Then she saw an advertisement that would change everything. It was for adult film work in New York City, and the pay was more than she'd make in months of waiting tables. Most people would have walked away. Most people would have said it wasn't worth it. But Jane Hamilton wasn't most people. Here's what makes this moment so fascinating. Jane didn't stumble into the adult film industry out of desperation alone. In later interviews, she admitted something that shocked a lot of people. She was genuinely curious. This was the tail end of 70 Seconds, a moment when adult cinema was experiencing something unprecedented. Films like Deep Throat and The Devil and Miss Jones had crossed over into mainstream culture. Theaters in Times Square were showing adult features to packed audiences, and critics were actually reviewing these films in legitimate publications. For the first time in history, adult entertainment had directors with vision, cinematographers with skill, and budgets that allowed for real storytelling. Jane saw an opportunity that most people couldn't understand, a chance to perform, to explore complex themes around sexuality and freedom, and yes, to make real money doing it. So she walked into that audition, and Jane Hamilton disappeared forever. Veronica Hart was born. Now, here's where the story gets really interesting, and this is something that even hardcore Golden Age fans don't realize. Veronica Hart's rise wasn't gradual, it was explosive. Within her first year in the industry, she was already working with the top directors and appearing in high-profile productions. But what separated Hart from dozens of other performers wasn't just her looks or her willingness to work, it was her brain. Directors quickly realized that Hart could actually act. She could deliver lines convincingly, she understood blocking and camera angles, and she brought an intelligence to her roles that elevated the material. In an era when most adult films still had plots, narratives, and character development, Hart became the actress that directors actually wanted to work with. She appeared in over 100 films, and she wasn't just showing up for a paycheck. She was choosing projects that challenged her, working with filmmakers who respected the craft, and building a reputation as one of the most professional performers in the business. The awards started rolling in. AVN Awards, XRCO recognition, and eventually induction into multiple halls of fame. On the surface, Veronica Hart had achieved everything she set out to do. She was famous, she was respected within her industry, and she was making more money than she ever would have in mainstream entertainment. But here's the part of the story that nobody talks about, and this is where everything changes. Success in the adult film world came with a price that Jane Hamilton never fully anticipated. Every door that opened in the adult industry meant a door permanently closed in mainstream entertainment. There would be no crossover. There would be no redemption arc. Once you were in for life, and society would never let you forget it. Hart has spoken candidly about this in the years since, and her honesty is brutal. She's talked about the psychological toll of working in an industry that millions of people consumed in private but condemned in public. She's discussed the lack of regulation, the exploitation that many performers faced, and the way the industry chewed people up and spit them out once they were no longer profitable. But here's what makes Veronica Hart's story different from so many others. She refused to be a victim of the industry. Instead, she decided to change it from the inside. As the golden age was ending and the industry was shifting toward cheaper, faster video production, Hart made a decision that would define the second act of her career. She stepped behind the camera and became a director. This is where Hart's true legacy begins, and it's the part of her story that deserves way more attention. As one of the few women directing adult films, Hart brought something to the industry that had been sorely lacking a female perspective. She wasn't interested in making content that catered solely to male fantasies. She wanted to create films that depicted authentic female pleasure, that emphasized consent and mutual respect, and that treated performers like human beings rather than disposable commodities. She fought for better working conditions on her sets, she mentored younger performers, and she used her influence to push for safety standards and professionalism. Hart understood something that most people in the industry didn't, that if adult entertainment was going to survive and evolve, it needed to treat its workers with dignity and respect. But directing wasn't enough for Hart. She continued to evolve, taking on roles in production management, serving on industry boards, and becoming one of the most vocal advocates for performer rights. She gave lectures at universities, participated in documentaries about the Golden Age, and worked tirelessly to preserve the history of an era that mainstream culture wanted to forget. She became a bridge between the wild, unregulated early days and the more professional modern industry. And here's the thing that's so powerful about Hart's journey: she never apologized for her choices. She never played the role of the repentant, fallen woman that society wanted her to be. She owned her story, defended her decisions, and used her platform to fight for others who couldn't fight for themselves. So what's the truth about Veronica Hart? The truth is complicated, and that's exactly what makes her story so compelling. She was a performer who brought legitimacy to an industry that society refused to legitimize. She was an artist working in a medium that culture refused to call art. She was a businesswoman who succeeded in an era when women had very few paths to power in any entertainment industry. And she was a human being who made difficult choices, navigated judgment and stigma, and ultimately carved out a legacy that extends far beyond the film she made. Hart's story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the entertainment we consume, the performers we watch but refuse to see as fully human, and the ways society controls and profits from sexuality while condemning those who participate in it openly. Veronica Hart didn't have an easy path, and she'd be the first to tell you that. But she survived, she evolved, and she left an indelible mark on an entire industry. Her journey from Jane Hamilton to Veronica Hart to director, advocate, and industry leader is a masterclass in reinvention, resilience, and refusing to let society define who you are. This is the untold story of a golden age icon who refused to disappear, and it's a story that deserves to be told. If this story opened your eyes to a side of film history you've never considered before, you need to subscribe to Universal Desires right now. We're bringing you the legends, the pioneers, and the forgotten icons that shape cinema in ways mainstream media refuses to acknowledge. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below telling me who you want to hear about next. We've got dozens more untold stories coming your way, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single one. Thanks for watching, and remember, every icon has an untold story. I'll see you in the next one.